It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this morning. I appreciate you joining with us. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to educate and inform yourself. I'm going to hammer 4 hard-hitting topics this morning, including the Cato Institute's testimony yesterday in front of Congress, in which the individual from Cato came right out and said what everybody knows, but everybody's afraid to say. The people can overthrow their government when their government is operating lawlessly. Thank goodness somebody had the courage of their convictions to stand up and say the truth. I'm going to actually let you hear it in a moment, but I'll tell you what. This is a turning point for American patriots, and I want you to remember it because this is going to be an important step in the right direction to restoring this nation. Everybody else, there were 4 panelists there, and the other 3 were mealy-mouthed, nonsensical answers, and this guy came right out and said, hey, the way this president is operating, you are living on borrowed time. Our second topic this morning is going to be Obamacare security and how it's led us to a national crisis. The fix is in. However, it's the wrong kind of fix. The truth is that the people who are reviewing this website fix, if you will, are very clearly telling us that this website is so dangerous for you to input your information into, you are leaving yourself wide open. You may as well drive down the road with a million business cards through a busy city and just start throwing your personal information out the window. Your name, your address, your income, your social security number, everything needed to make you to cause identity fraud and for you to be hacked into, including your own computer, is wide open for hackers, not to mention the fact that the government is actually transmitting your information to pretty much anybody they want. And you're left with, and by the way, they're not required to tell you if they've been hacked. The state exchanges are. There are 14 state exchanges. If they get hacked, they are required by law to notify you that your information's been stolen. The federal government has given themselves a pass on that regulation. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing is so out of control, operating in such a lawless fashion, it's amazing to me that the American people have not literally risen up and marched on Washington with torches and pitchforks demanding the resignation of this guy in office. This is completely outside the scope of anything that this government or this nation has ever withstood before. We are operating literally now as a dictatorial police state. And you're going to hear me make some very, very strong charges regarding this. But I got to tell you, it is time for Americans to stand up and say, we have had enough. Our third topic this morning, immigration. Is immigration going to be the next act of treason? John Boehner has just hired the person who is responsible, and she's a longtime advocate of immigration. And he's hired her to be his new staff relating to immigration issues. And word is out that what he's going to do is he's going to wait until after all of the people have registered to run in the primaries in 2014. And the minute that window is closed, he's then going to put up immigration for a vote. His idea is if he puts it up before that, a bunch of people will rise up and try to run against him and everybody else in Congress who's going to support it, like Cato and McCain and all the rest of these traitors. And so he's going to wait until right after the registration period is closed. Then he's going to throw this out for a vote. I'll tell you what, I am so sick and tired of dirty tricks, skullduggery, carpetbagging, two-bit thieving, conniving scumbags in Congress who are actually working actively to betray this nation. I've had it, and you should too. Our fourth topic, and this one's a very important one. Do not miss this discussion by Rand Paul. Freedom for security. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been trading freedom for security for a long time now. It's been endemic and it is systemic in our system. You have been taught that it's okay to do. You've been warned by our founders never to allow it to happen. And now Rand Paul has come right out and said the truth. That freedom for security is a suicide pact. It's a suicide pact for our nation. He didn't use the word suicide pact. Those are mine. But when you hear what he does actually have to say, you're going to be blown away. The truth of the matter is, we have allowed our nation to descend into lawlessness, thuggery, thugocracy, corporatocracy. We allow corporations to rule and buy and sell our Congress like there's so much chattel. They, in turn, apply the force of the police power against us to demand and force us to do things that are in the corporation's best interest that they've been paid to implement on us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually treason. Go look up the word treason. Don't tell me I use it too much. You go look it up and then start actually using it, because that is the way it should be used. These people are betraying us. They are betraying everything that we stand for in this country. And I, for one, have had it, and I'm encouraging you to educate yourself, inform yourself, recognize what you see when you see it, and then take action against it. We are very, very close, folks, to the boiling point here. This volcano is rumbling. Smoke's been spewing out of this thing for a long time. And I'm going to tell you something. It's not going to be too much longer before you must make a choice. You've got to get off the fence. You must say, I'm going to either do something for our nation and preserve liberty and freedom for the future generations, including my own, or I'm going to sit down and I'm going to accept slavery quietly. Frankly, if you're of that ilk, then I really have nothing further to discuss with you. All right, I'm going to tackle our first topic this morning because this is an important one. This guy from the Cato Institute literally came out, and during a congressional committee hearing about the constitutional limits that are imposed on the presidency and the actions that Barack Obama has taken in disregard of those laws regarding the implementation of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, they had 4 panelists up there. And it's amazing what these people actually said. One of them is actually a Democratic supporter of Obamacare. And he came right out and made it very clear that this thing is out of control. But more importantly, Michael Cannon from the Cato Institute, he's the Director of Health Policy Studies. He came out and made a very clear statement. He was asked directly by the committee to explain what the course of action should be for America as we move forward and these unconstitutional, lawless acts continue by the imperialistic president we now have in office. Here's what he said. There is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on our government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government or our revolutionary right to overthrow it. That is not something that anyone wants to contemplate. If the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, then they will conclude that neither are they. That is a very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligation upon people that the legislature did not approve. Ladies and gentlemen, this was stated in a congressional hearing. It's in the congressional record. I got to tell you, even, the idea that we must take our nation back, regardless of what we have to do to accomplish that task, is actually now mainstream conversation. Oh, you can bet they're flipping out right now this morning in the annals of power. In the White Towers in D.C., in the Fort Meade, in the NSA, the FBI, they're all having kittens. You bet. The DHS, they're scrambling having meetings this morning after this statement. And mark my words, this is a turning point for America. I want you to actually hear it yourself. It's about a 5-minute discussion. And if you're watching this on video, I know it's boring. You're going to have to watch me watching this. I promise, by the way, we're working on a solution to be able to actually incorporate screenshots into this so that you'll be able to see it instead of having to watch me watch it. But we're working on that over the course of the week. By Monday, I think we'll have it resolved. But the point is simply this. This is an important aspect of where we stand in this nation. And I got to tell you, the patriots that are out there that are hiding in the shadows because they're afraid, it is time for you to step up and arise, to be counted. It is time for you to be fierce, to be fearless. It is time for you to be courageous. And it is time for you to speak out, even when your voice shakes with fear. I'm telling you, we have reached the culmination, the point where we can no longer allow this nation to continue to go on in the fashion in which we've been allowing things to move. We have reached a very, very dangerous point in our nation where we are now having to make decisions about whether or not we are going to take our nation back or allow it to descend into total and utter chaos. You know, you hear all the time about people who are concerned about anarchy and things like that. This is anarchy. It is nothing different. We are now living in a thugocracy. This government and this president who blatantly, lawlessly ignores everything that the government, everything that the nation stands for. This stuff is so totally out of control, folks. I really don't know how many more ways we can slice the bread. I mean, it's time that we rose up and recognized exactly what we're seeing and what we're doing. We really have reached a point in which we can no longer continue this path. For whatever reason, this video is not playing, and I apologize. I wanted you to hear this whole thing. I'm very frustrated that it's not functioning because I just watched it. Essentially, here's the long and the short of it. You know, we've talked about a lot of ways to accomplish this. I've written an article out there which is entitled, it's on America's Voice now, and you can go find it if you're not familiar with it. It's entitled The Plan to Take Back America. Place all state and federal capitals under civil disobedience siege. And I've advocated for a long time now for a peaceful, massive civil disobedience siege. And note the words and mark my words when I say peaceful. I'm not looking for an armed revolt here, and I don't think we need to go there. I don't think we need to invoke the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the founders' understanding of the principles and the concepts of mutually assured destruction. I say that because our founders didn't have nuclear weapons at the time. But the idea that, Russia throws 10,000 and we throw 10,000 and, boom, everybody's wiped out, that's the idea of mutually assured destruction. And it was to act as a deterrent against anybody getting reckless with a nuclear weapon. Well, in the founders' day, they understood that the Second Amendment was, in that case, the equivalent, if you will, of mutually assured destruction. In order for the American population to descend to the point where we would have to use force of arms to retake our nation, it would destroy and dissolve our union. It would leave a wound that would be unimaginably raw and open for perhaps hundreds of years. In fact, the proof is, ladies and gentlemen, that during the Civil War, which occurred, well over 150 years ago, we are still sitting here having the same issues again. Here we are. The Civil War was about states' rights. Forget all that nonsense that was pumped into your mind and the propaganda that you were fed that it was about slavery. Slavery was an afterthought in the Civil War. It was all about states' rights. And it was about the federal government utilizing overbearing pressure and abusing the states that were producing goods that they were benefiting the North while the South paid all the dues and the fees. And the simple truth is, we are here again in this situation, but our constitutional crisis now is far greater than it ever was during the Civil War. And yet those wounds are still open 150 years later. We're not vastly far from that period again. And I'm encouraging you to recognize the difference. There are a couple of things that we can do. One, I encourage and I applaud the idea of a massive civil disobedience. I would love to see America do an Egyptian moment where 20, 30 million Americans march on Washington and state capitals and conduct a sit-in and say, that's it, we're not leaving until you do. And we've got a group in the Batwings who are sitting here waiting to replace the senators and the Congress and the administrative agency heads and the president and the judges. And the truth is, that takes a lot of coordination. And it's going to take a lot of money to put that together, because people have to be found, they have to be qualified, they have to be vetted, they have to be interviewed. You're talking about a significant change. We need 5,000 people qualified, vetted, and approved to fill those slots. There's also been talk of the Convention of the States in utilizing Article 5 to implement constitutional measures and constitutional changes that would, and Mark Levin famously just recently wrote a book about this, where you would have the opportunity to enable constitutional amendment changes without Congress's authorization. The Constitution allows us to essentially pass resolutions that will be constitutional amendments without Congress's approval. We don't need Congress to do that. We can do that as we the people, through our states. It takes 3/4 of the states to accomplish it. Again, it's a massive undertaking. And I encourage it, but I'm also wary of it. I'm cautious about it, because my concern is that moneyed interests will get involved in it, and then it'll end up being a wide open door to modifying the Constitution in ways that will ultimately not benefit Americans. So I want to look at it, and I want to explore it, and I actually want to accomplish it. I'm just telling you that we need to make sure that we go into it with our eyes wide open and not wide shut. But the alternative solution here is that we do some sort of massive peaceful civil disobedience. And guess what? You can actually do massive peaceful civil disobedience at home right now, right today. You know how you can do that? Well, for starters, you can literally go on to healthcare.gov and you can surf around. Don't register, but click on a lot of stuff and clog the website up. Don't hack it. We're not looking to do anything illegal. You're just going to surf and surf and surf and surf and surf, and you're going to click all the links that you can click, and you're going to bog the thing down. The truth is, we can lock out and shut down and kill Obamacare ourselves. We don't have to wait for a bunch of traitors in Congress to overrule a law which should never have been passed in the first place by them. I'll grant you none of the Republicans voted for it, but that doesn't excuse them, because they've still funded it. So, since the power of the purse is one of the strongest methodologies of controlling the government and a government out of control, and the House has not seen fit to utilize that because they're either too chicken, or they're too corrupt, or they've been coerced, or they've been co-opted because the NSA's got pictures of some congressman who likes little boys or little girls, or has a problem with cocaine, and they got photographs of him with a straw up his nose, or they've got some dirty business deal he's done and proof of it in his email that they've been capturing for years. These people are corrupt, ladies and gentlemen, or they've been corrupted by the sheer magnitude of the power of their dukeship and their duchesses. They act like they are elitists who live above the rest of the peons, the peasants like us. And frankly, I don't know about you, but I am sick of it. I am tired of people who say one thing and pay attention to you only the few scant weeks before an election. And then after that, they treat you like farm product and ranchers' cattle. You're to be bought and sold like a commodity. You're to be tagged and marked. And when your usefulness has outlived itself, then you're to be culled from the herd. You see, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real problem here. We have a Congress which completely ignores the wishes of America. Proof and case in point. You've got Claire McCaskill. 72% of Missouri said to her, "We do not want Obamacare." And she voted for it anyway. When 72% of the constituency of a state says we don't want something, how dare that legislator go ahead and vote for it anyway because her party tells her she has to? Now, I've been working on this principle called the Pact, and I'm going to talk more about it in coming weeks. The idea of the Pact is real simple. It's the political accountability contract and trust They're in the acronym PACT, the Pact. The Political Accountability, Contract, and Trust. And here's how it works. It's real simple. I've only got 2 minutes to explain this, but we'll be talking about it more as we move forward. Here's how it works. You have a series of 5 or 11 people around you as an elected representative. And this works whether or not you're running for city mayor, or whether you're running for city council, or whether you're running for Congress in the House and the Senate, or in the federal and state side. It doesn't make any difference. Any elected position. And here's the way it works. There are a series of contracted things that you agree to, including term limits. Because we don't need a constitutional amendment to eliminate term limits or to add term limits. We can just have you agree in advance in a contract that you're going to abide by them, that you're going to run no more than 2 times in the House and 1 time in the Senate. And you can't overlap. You can't run twice in the House and then once in the Senate. And after that, you're going to go home and retire, and you're going to go back to being whatever it was you were before. Shopkeeper, a manufacturer, a manager, a school teacher, whatever you were doing before. The simple truth is this. You pre-sign a resignation letter. And with that pre-signed resignation letter, your accountability partners can hold your feet to the fire and say, if you violate the contents of this contract, the terms in the agreement that you have made with us, then we literally just date your pre-signed resignation letter, give you 48 hours notice that we're submitting it to the press so that you can get prepared to explain why you're no longer going to represent the people, because you've betrayed them. You see, the truth is, folks, we are really, really out of time in terms of how to deal with this. And I got to tell you, if we don't move quickly, if we don't move fast, if we don't immediately recognize the danger we're in, we will have to do what Michael Cannon from the Cato Institute threw out there. In his testimony, I want you to hear it again. I'm going to read it back to you one more time. He was very clear. The senator said to him, what can we do if this president continues in this lawless fashion? And here's what he said. There is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government or our revolutionary right to overthrow it. That is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. If the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, then they will conclude that neither are they. That is a very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations upon people that the legislature did not approve. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't get any more blatant than that. And I'll tell you what, I'll take it back further than Abraham Lincoln. It tells us that right in our Declaration of Independence. And there's no denying what it says. It says anytime government operates outside of the restrictions of and the best interest of the people, not only do the people have a right to overthrow that government, they have an obligation and a duty to do so. Let's just make it peacefully. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to tackle our second topic, Obamacare security. It's causing a national crisis, and you need to be aware of what's happening around us. We'll be back in just a moment. Stick with us. You're listening to America's Voice Now. All right. We're back. Hey, if you're listening to us on KUNQ, our newest radio station edition, welcome to the show. I'm glad that we're able to educate, inform, motivate, and activate you. For the record, tomorrow morning, we're going to do an interview with the guys over there at the station. They're going to So we're going to start a little later tomorrow morning than normal, by the way. We're going to come on about 8:30 in the morning in our streaming interview or a streaming program instead of at 8 because we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss the coming programming that we're going to be doing on KUNQ. If you're in South Central Missouri, KUNQ is at 99.3, and it's an outstanding radio station, big country, and it is called The Rooster. This is a great station. This is a station that plays country music and kind of like some soft country rock and things like that. And they throw in a mix of some older classics as well. I mean, I've heard stuff like some little Led Zeppelin thrown in there, right? Which is one of my faves. By day, they're sitting there playing great music. At night, everybody takes off their bill caps and takes off their cowboy hats, and we put on Tri-Corner Patriot hats on this station. So I am extraordinarily happy to be with these guys. I am very impressed with what they're doing. These guys are patriots for America, and they are standing up, and they're going to be carrying America's voice now from midnight to 2. I know we've been broadcasting here on the 3 to 5 slot, but we're going to shortly move to the midnight to 2 a.m. slot, and we'll kick off your late nights with some great, powerful news and information, education, and we'll try to get some folks motivated and awake and aware. You know, radio is a powerful medium because it's the one area that cannot be controlled by big media, big business, and by government. Why? Well, because there are really about 6 corporations that really control everything that you see on television and you read in the papers. But radio is different because there's about 10,000 radio stations out there, and the vast majority of them are owned by small mom-and-pop type organizations. They own 1 or 2 or 5 stations. And these are the folks that they're not sitting there subjected to some corporate mandate that says, you can't talk about this. So they have a show like mine on. And, listen, I hear people say, you're a bomb thrower. You throw the word treason around. You got to be kidding me. You can't say that. Yes, you can. This is called free speech. This is the job of the media. And I'm an alternative media host. My job is to tell you what the press is not telling you. They're feeding you pabulum. They're feeding you chalk. They're feeding you propaganda. And I'm telling you the truth. Now, you may not like the style in which I give it to you. You may not even like who I am. You may not like my message. But I can tell you this. You're going to find that if you listen long enough, there's a lot of truth that you're going to hear that you're not hearing anywhere else. And you're going to hear analysis of what they're giving to you. And I'll break it down so that you can utilize your own best critical thinking skills to identify when you're being lied to. Because once you know how they're lying to you, once you see the ways in which they're lying to you, you can never be fooled again. See, that's the beauty of it. If you think about it like this, if a guy who's a magician were out on a stage and he was saying to you, here's the trick I'm going to do, and he does this magical trick, and you're like, wow, how the heck did he do that? You're confused. I mean, you knew something spectacular just happened, but you couldn't quite figure out how. But if he sat down and he showed you how he does all of his tricks, you'd never be fooled again. The truth is, utilizing your critical thinking skills and learning and practicing them and exercising that critical thinking muscle so that you are building muscle memory and you are building a fit mind is the number one tool and weapon that you have against being mistreated and fooled and betrayed by not only the people in your government, but also within those people who are in the press and the media who are basically no longer representing the truth, but they're representing the government. They're feeding you government stories right off the desk. It's like the fax line rings in the morning and boom, up comes the stories they're going to read today. They're biased. They're not truthful. And when the truth needs to come out, if it's such a blatant story they can't avoid it because alternative media like me has made it a national issue, then they skim over it. And they just give you the surface of it so that you really don't get enough to really sate your hunger. My job is to educate you about what's going on and give you the jumping off place where you can look at what information has been presented and then say, okay, now I've got the idea of what's happening. And what I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to educate myself about these stories, about these issues. And I'm going to gather so much information that I can make an informed decision and an informed opinion of my own. I'm not going to parrot what I heard somebody else say. I'm not going to say the talking points that I heard somebody say that I kind of agreed with. I'm going to formulate my own opinion, and I'm going to articulate my beliefs and my opinions in my own words, and then I'm going to share that with my circle of influence, and I'm going to be a leader to bring change to this world. That's the job. That's the goal. That's the plan. Please recognize your own leadership skills and qualities. Don't overlook them. I hear people say to me all the time, listen, I'm no leader. You're wrong. You are a leader. You just don't know it yet. And that's the truth. Everybody has leadership quality. You need to exercise it, though. If you can't pick up a 50-pound cinder block, then if you work at it long enough and you exercise a little bit, shortly you'll be able to pick it up and carry it around. And after a little while, you'll be able to carry it a mile. It's the same thing with leadership skills, folks. And it's the same thing with being able to speak articulately on a topic or on a subject. If you work at it, you can be extraordinary, you can be exceptional, and you can change hearts and minds. But you need to know your subject matter, and you need to have your own opinion, so that when people challenge you, you know why and where you've arrived at that decision-making process. You have the capability to answer their questions and their concerns rationally, logically, with well-reasoned responses. Not the stuff that you hear out of the progressives. When you throw enough logic and reason at them to stall all their arguments, what do they always do? They descend into emotional argument. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's when you know you just won. Okay. A couple of things. Obamacare security. We have entered a point where we are in a national crisis. I kind of got derailed there for a second. But this is important stuff. We have reached a point where we are now in a national crisis on the security of this healthcare.gov thing. Forget all the stuff about the government and the president acting irresponsibly and lawlessly and lying to the American people. Blatantly, multiple times, repeatedly, with the intention to mislead you, to make a decision that you ordinarily would not have made without that lie. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called fraud. If I said to you, I've got an investment for you, and I promised you that you were going to get certain things as a result of your investment, and you made that investment based upon my assertions and my promises, and then it turned out that I was lying to you to mislead you into investing that money, that's fraud. And what the president has done, and what everybody in Congress has done who supported this thing, is no different. They got you to not get up on your feet, to not get on the phone, to not drive your congressman out, to not drive your senator out, because they promised you something that you couldn't have. Access to your existing doctors, access to your existing health plans. You had no idea that when you signed up for Obamacare, if you were below into the poverty level and you got any kind of a subsidy from the Medicaid system and you're tossed into the Medicaid rolls, you will lose all the equity in your home. Did you even know that? You know what? Nobody in the mainstream media is talking about that. I'm not even hearing guys like Rush and Beck and those guys talk about it. Why not? When you go onto Medicaid rolls, you sign away any assets you have. Did you know that? Why is nobody talking about it? What's the big secret? The big secret is this is the giant sucking sound of the theft of the resources of everyone who gets pushed onto the Medicaid rolls. And it's going to be, ladies and gentlemen, in the tens of millions of people. That home that you own, that you bought smart, and you've been double paying on to keep your mortgage low, and you've been trying to pay it off, you and your wife have been working at it really hard. Guess what? When you're pushed onto the Medicaid rolls, the equity in that house no longer belongs to you. It now belongs to the state that is paying your medical bills. Want proof? Go to the Medicaid website in your state and go look up what the rules say. The rules will very clearly tell you If you sell that home somewhere down the road and you've got $50,000 worth of equity in it, and you go to the closing and you're expecting to walk out of there with a check for $50,000, stop right there. You're not getting it. They're going to step in and say, well, remember now, your wife had breast cancer and we took care of that. So that $50,000 is ours because those medical bills were $80,000. You still owe us $30,000. Screeching halt. Now, do you see what I mean? Nobody's talking about it. Why? Because it's more fraud being pumped down to your level. You don't even know that when you sign up for Obamacare, you are allowing all of the equity that you have built up, any money and any savings that you have in the bank. The concept of this is so massive because it's theft. If you don't know you're signing away your equity in your home, how can you possibly, and if you do know you're signing away your equity, why would you possibly sign up for this disaster? Not to mention the fact that you're on a website where literally the fix they just implemented is worse than the original security problems it had. How do I know that? Well, because I can tell you, because I'm sitting here and I'm watching and I'm reading the words of the people who are responsible to tell us that. Not the people in government, the people who are supposed to be watching after them. They released a progress report on Sunday, following their own self-imposed November 30th deadline to fix the website. Here's the problem. David Kennedy, the CEO of the online security firm Trusted Security, he told the Washington Free Beacon the following thing. They gave out this 8-page report, and in that report they talked about how they had done all these repairs and fixes. They fixed 400 bugs, right? The site capacity is stable at its intended level. That's what they said. By the way, it was crashing as late as yesterday. So here's the problem. In that 8-page report, they talked about 400 bug fixes, but not a single one of them addressed anything related to security. And here's what David Kennedy says. And this guy is a white hat hacker. What he does is he tries to break into people's websites, and then he gets paid to verify that their security is good. It doesn't appear that any security fixes were done at all. There are a number of security concerns already with the website, and that's without even actually hacking the site. That's just from a purely passive analysis. We found a number of critical exposures that were around sensitive information, the ability to hack into the site, things like that. We reported those issues, and not a single one of those issues appears to have been addressed at all. They said they implemented over 400 bug fixes. When you recode an application to fix these 400 bugs, and they're rushing this out of the door to get the site at least so it can work a little bit, you're introducing more security flaws as you go along with it because you didn't check that code. I'm a little bit more skeptical now than I was before, and I would definitely still advise individuals to not use the website because it's definitely something that I don't believe is secure, and neither did the 4 individuals that testified in front of Congress alongside me. I think there's some major security concerns here around privacy and information, and they haven't even come close to being addressed, and they won't be in the short term. Wow. He's flat out telling you, do not submit your personal information to the Obamacare website because it's wide open to hackers. And I got to tell you, the other side of it is it's wide open to government fraud and government abuse of your information. You don't realize it, but you're waiving your right to your Fourth Amendment, and you're waiving your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination when you submit your information. I'm going to tell you how right now. This government has actually passed a law that requires you, under the law, to violate and waive your Fourth Amendment right, which supersedes the law they passed in 2010. This is a law that came from God and nature that existed long before even the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution itself. You have a right to privacy. You have a right not to be searched. You have a right for your things not to be seized. That's the Fourth Amendment, right? It says only with probable cause. Well, guess what? You're waiving your Fourth Amendment right under pressure from another unconstitutional law that was passed only 3 years ago. Because when you submit your information, you're required to click on a button that says, 1, that the government can share all your information with anybody they so choose, including the Department of Homeland Security, the IRS, Social Security, and any other contractors who remain unnamed, and you don't even have any idea. There's thousands of them. These people are not obligated to be secure with your data. And how are they going to misuse it? Are they going to sell it? Well, we sell it without your name, so, it doesn't include any personally identifiable information. Bunk. I don't want my health information sold. I don't want somebody to know I've had cancer, or I've got diabetes, or I've got psoriasis. That's nobody's damn business but mine. The truth is, this is, ladies and gentlemen, is a complete and utter betrayal of America. And they're utilizing this system as a database collection procedure so that they can build dossiers and add them to the NSA files they already have on you. When we touch our fourth topic and you listen to what Rand Paul says about what the NSA is doing listening into your phone calls in concert with the FBI, you're going to be blown away. I'm telling you, do not miss this fourth segment. It's very important. What you don't realize is that the NSA is doing it internationally, but the FBI is doing it domestically, and nobody's talking about that. That's all shh, 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 hush, hush, hush. You're violating your own Fourth Amendment privacy right. You're violating your right to not have your information distributed and seized and stolen from you. And worse yet, you have a Fifth Amendment right that supersedes anything that was passed in 2010 by some elected group of traitors. Your Fifth Amendment right says that you have an assurance and a guarantee that you cannot be coerced and co-opted to testify against yourself. And yet, when you sign up for Obamacare, in order to complete your registration with the website, you have to sign and click on a waiver that says, I agree that this information can be used for the purposes of auditing, that it can be used for the purposes of investigation against me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a waiver of your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So how do you pass a law in 2010 that enables you, or forces you, I should say, to violate the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America? I mean, look at it that way, and suddenly the light should go on. So you pass a law in 2010 that violates the law that was passed in 1792, and that, quite frankly, existed for 1,000 years before that. Why? Because the Constitution only told us and outlined in writing what our rights already were. But Congress and the Constitution didn't give us those rights. They just delineated them in writing. They outlined them and put it in writing for the first time in history. No one else had ever done that before. And what they did was they said, hey, listen, we're actually going to put this in writing, that these rights exist and that they're given to you by your Creator, that they are given to you by God, that they are a part of natural law, that every individual has the right to free speech and to worship as they choose, that every individual has the right to self-defense, not only of their home and their family, but also of their state and also of their nation. That every individual has the right not to be abused by troops who are going to come in and steal their food and sleep in their bed and kick them out of their master bedroom. That every individual has the right to privacy and that they have the right not to have their things seized by their government, because that's a government operating in tyranny. That no one can be coerced and forced at the point of a gun to confess and testify against themselves. For crimini's sake, folks, that's what they did in the Inquisition, right? We're going to burn you until you tell us that you confess that you're sin. Come on, give me a break. This is nothing more than an Inquisition of 2013 instead of the 1400s. You're being forced to violate the basic tenets of everything that makes you a free man or a free woman. Everything that your creator, and I don't care whether you're a religious person or you're an atheist, and I don't care whether you're a Buddhist or a Catholic or a Christian or whatever you are, a Jew, the truth is we all have these innate rights in us. And whether we believe in an actual creator or whether you believe that we're naturally spawned out of space dust doesn't really matter to me. The simple truth is this. The fact that you are living, the fact that you are breathing, and the fact that you can fog a mirror gives you those unalienable rights. Period. No disclaimers, no caveats. And nothing that Congress or this president or anyone else can do can take them away from you. The truth is, what they're doing with this Obamacare website is putting every American in danger. And they know it. And they don't care. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a violation of their oath of responsibility to you. That is a violation of their oath to protect and defend you, as well as this nation. When they take that oath, they're not taking an oath to the Constitution. They're taking an oath to the people that elected them. They are taking an oath to the country as a whole. They are taking an oath to the state that they represent and the people who live within it. And they are saying, you can be assured that I am going to act in your best interest. Think of it like a lawyer. Would you hire a lawyer that said to you, listen, under attorney-client privilege, you can tell me, and if you did the crime, you can admit to it to me, and I can't testify against you. And you say, okay, I did it. And then the lawyer strides into court the next morning and says, Your Honor, my client admitted that he committed the crime, and therefore you have to find him guilty. Wow, wouldn't that be a betrayal? Is what Congress is doing any different? No, it's not. If you went to your attorney and you said, here's money for the closing on this piece of property. I'm giving you the down payment. You can hold it in your trust account until we get the mortgage issues settled out. And then when we go to the closing, you bring the check with you, but it shows that I'm serious. Here's $20,000. If you handed that money to your accountant, to your attorney, and he said, I'm going to put this in my trust account. This is an account that doesn't get commingled with the money I pay my secretary from. It's going to have your name on it. And then he went out and you found out he took that money and he went on vacation. That would be fraud. He misled you. Your Congress is doing the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. They are misleading you. They are giving you the impression that they can be trusted while they are turning around and doing exactly the worst that they can do to you, not the best they can do for you. The security system in this system does not exist at all. There is no security. It's so wide open that the first grader, the kindergarten hacker can break into this website and get your information. The states are required to notify you if they get hacked. But did you know that the federal government has exempted itself? So if they get hacked and 20 million Americans' information is stolen and downloaded, and then they go out and they start selling that information to every credit card fraudster out there who goes out and applies for a mortgage in your name or a credit card, did you know that they don't even have to tell you? Wow. If that's not a betrayal, I don't know what is. Ask yourself this question. Is Congress really representing you? I think if you ask that question, you're going to find the answer is absolutely not. And that's why in 2014, we shouldn't see a 90% incumbency renewal, a re-election for 90%. That's the statistics that normally happen. We should see 90% of everybody in Congress thrown out on their ear. In fact, I want to take it to 100%. Take every one of them out. The only ones that you can't take out are those in the Senate who have terms left. That rolls over in breaks of three segments. All right, we're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to tackle our third topic, immigration. The next congressional act of treason is about to occur, and you better be aware of it. We'll be right back.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We're in our third segment this morning. If you're on our newest station, Big Country 93, The Rooster at 99.3 FM on your dial in South Central Missouri, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you. Appreciate you joining with us. We're grateful to the folks over at KUNQ. You know, Rick and Rocky are great fellas. They're patriots, and we appreciate their carrying the show. Okay, we're going to talk about, in this segment, the issue of immigration. But before we get there, I got to tell you, I want to bring you up to speed on one thing. I want you to mark your calendar because the U.S. Park Service is in the land grab for the scenic riverways. Again, they're trying to implement this 20-year plan. I've done a show about this, and if you want, you can find it on YouTube or on americasvoicenow.org. The National Park Service is trying to implement their Ozark National Scenic Riverways 20-year plan, and that would eliminate 65 miles of horse trails. It would eliminate unauthorized river crossings. It would require permits for horseback riding. It would eliminate motor vehicle access to the gravel bars. It would eliminate all ATV, UTV, and four-wheeler use within the park area. It would eliminate outboard motors in some areas and reduce the power of motorboats in other areas. It would pass regulations that would reduce that horsepower on motorboats. And they have no substantial empirical scientific evidence to back up any of their claims that all of that stuff is damaging to the river. What it really comes down to is it's federal control over a state piece of property. So there's two things you need to know about. One, you got to set your calendar to attend some of these meetings because we're going to go over there and we're going to raise Holy Cain. Secondarily, we're also putting in place an active, aggressive, proactive response. In other words, we're tired of sitting here and being on the defensive. So we're going to go on the offensive. We're actually demanding that the federal government release the entire scenic riverways back to the state of Missouri. Get your hands off our land. Take your federal stuff, take your federal uniforms and your trucks and get out of here. We're going to turn it back over to the state of Missouri and allow the state of Missouri to control and operate and maintain the land around it and these rivers. It's time for the federal government to get out of our back pocket, to stop telling us what to do with our property, to stop allowing the Sierra Club to dictate the rules upon which the river that runs through our backyards is dealt with. The truth is, if the Sierra Club was so doggone good, and they're based in Kirkwood in one of the hearing locations, if they were so wonderful at their preservation efforts, why is it that all the people come from St. Louis down here? I'll tell you why. Because they've polluted their rivers so badly, you can't even go into them. The truth of the matter is, stay out of our backyard and start looking for the log in your own eye before you start looking for the speck in ours. So we need your attendance. We need you to go out there and help us protest at Van Buren at the Van Buren Youth and Community Center, 6 to 9 p.m., December 10th. Then on December 11th, there's going to be another hearing at the Powder Valley Conservation Nature Center in Kirkwood, Missouri. You know why they're holding it up there? Because that's the seat of power for the Sierra Club, and they can stack that meeting with a bunch of their supporters and say, oh, looky, using the Delphi technique, we have general consensus from the public. And see, the vast majority of the public wants us to take control of the rivers. It's all a lie, and it's a scam. If you don't know what the Delphi technique is, go onto your web browser and go look it up. I'll also, if you want, email me. I've got 3 articles on it. I'll email them to you. You can email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Also, from 10 a.m. till noon on December 11th, in the Salem City Hall, there's going to be a Q&A meeting. And I want you to attend that. Isn't it interesting that the meetings locally here they're going to hold them at 10 to noon in the morning when most people around here are hard at work. This is a setup by the National Park Service to utilize the Delphi technique to build public consensus for a predestined, pre-agreed-upon outcome. And the outcome is going to be they get their way, and we just have to live with it. So we need massive support from the community to say, you know what? Stay out of our backyard. Stop telling us what to do. Get out. Now, the alternatives, there are 3 different aspects to this. And the alternatives are you can vote for they take no action. In other words, everything stays the same. And that's what we want. And the reason we want that one is because once this is solved and resolved, we are going on the offensive. We've already gotten a lot of our state legislators, our state conservation department, and we're now getting our federal legislators to get together and agree. Many of them have already agreed that if the state of Missouri is willing to accept the property back and take responsibility for it through our conservation department, they will make the demand that the federal government release that property back to us. That, ladies and gentlemen, is in our true best interest. If you have questions, if you need to carpool, here's a couple of phone numbers and emails you can contact. You can get a hold of Mike Slack at 417-264-2435. That's 417-264-2435. You can also call Don Eagleman. Don runs the Campaign for Liberty group. It's like a libertarian organization. Don's a great fella. And by the way, the Campaign for Liberty meetings are the second Thursday of every month, and you should be attending. They're at Chen's Garden in West Plains. Don Eagleman, if you want more information about this and you want to attend these hearings, call him, or you can call him about going to a Campaign for Liberty meeting. 417-372-7112. That's 417-372-7112. Or you can email Don Eagleman, and it's spelled like the bird eagle with M-A-N at the end. So it's Don, D-O-N, Eagleman @gmail.com, or you can send me an email at mike@americasvoicenow.org. All right? Make sure that you are communicating with us, and we want to set up carpools. We want to make sure that we've got a massive showing here to protest and tell these people we're throwing them out, right? We want to make sure we make it clear. This is our property. It's our state. It's our land. You have no say in how we deal with this. This is our property, and you're not going to impose some 20-year plan that demands what we can do with our own property. All right. The second issue we want to take into account here is, by the way, on Saturday, December 14th, the Constitution Party is going to have self-governance classes, and they're going to be holding those at the Clearwater Family Youth Center in Piedmont, Missouri. You can attend that if you want to. It is the self-governance class, level 1, December 14th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's held by the Constitution Party, and Doug Enyart is going to be running it. And his information, if you want to call him for more info, is 573-223-7986. That's 573-223-7986. You can also email him at CFC, Charlie Foxtrot Charlie, @SEMO.net. That's Charlie Foxtrot Charlie, CFC, @SEMO, Sierra Echo Mike Oscar.net. Okay. Their website, by the way, is CPMO, Constitution Party, Missouri. All right? ConstitutionPartyMO.us. That's CPMO.us. Make sure that you're finding out what's going on with alternative parties, folks, because I can tell you right now, the Democrats and the Republicans have betrayed us a long time ago, and it's time we got rid of them. We need people in office who are going to act constitutionally, not based on whim, not based on the party dictating what they're going to do. They're no longer representing us if they represent the party, because the party doesn't have our best interest at heart. They have their continuation and their personalized and corporate and party enrichment in their interest, not you. You notice how they only talk to you a couple of weeks before election time. But after that, you're ignored totally. Or they just, cull you from the herd from time to time when you've outlived your usefulness to them. Okay, I promised that we would tackle the topic of immigration in this segment, and I've got 12 minutes to do it. Boehner, the Speaker of the House, is just signed up a new worker. She is the advocate for his office, a new staffer in charge of immigration policy. And since Boehner controls whatever gets to the floor, we've got to watch what's going on here, because Rebecca Talent is the person he hired, and she is a longtime veteran of immigration fights, and she's a big believer in reform, including legalization and amnesty. Now, she used to work for John McCain, and before that, she worked for Jeff Flake out of Arizona, both of whom were in approval of this treasonous Senate immigration bill. So let me tell you something. This doesn't bode well for us. The truth is, John Boehner has hired an enemy of the people of America to advise him on how he can get immigration through. Because these idiots in Washington think that if they can get enough Hispanic votes, if they can please enough Hispanic people by allowing immigration, they're going to get their votes. Nothing could be further from the truth. You see, the real reality is this, and Congress is unwilling to admit it. If they would only act constitutionally and in our best interest, if they would stop playing games, if they would stop capitulating to foreign interests, if they would stop capitulating to the lobbyists who pay them and actually start representing us, we'd support them unequivocally, and they'd win every time. But instead of acknowledging the mistakes they've made and correcting them, they continue down the path of stupidity, and they keep trying to find and figure out new ways at which to add voters. The truth is, there's more than enough people out there that would say, you know what? If the Republicans are going to start acting constitutionally, I'll start supporting them, including the vast majority of independents. But they don't want to talk about that. It reminds me of the education system. Oh, they keep trying these new experiments in education. They've been doing this crap since the 50s and 60s. Well, guess what? There was just an international test the other day, and Americans were in the bottom 20% for math and science, and we just came in average at history and literature. The truth is, all these experiments haven't accomplished a doggone thing. They've taught our kids to be a bunch of self-esteem-seeking idiots. They don't use any critical thinking skills, and frankly, they're not equipped to move on in the world. Our education system hasn't gotten better in the last 40 years. It's gotten significantly worse. The truth is, stop at the experiments and go back to what we know works. And it's the same thing with the Republicans. Stop pussyfooting around here and start doing what you know works. It's called living within the boundaries of the Constitution that you swore an oath to uphold. Now, Eric Cantor, another traitor. Oh, by the way, I'm not done with Boehner yet. Let me go back. Boehner is telling telling business interests in Texas that he's going to put up immigration reform for a vote, but he's only going to do it after the filing deadlines have passed for people to run against him and all the other Republicans in Congress. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, that tells you what a scheming, conniving, sneaky, dirty, carpetbagging piece of garbage Boehner really is. You see, he's not interested in doing what's right. He's interested in finding the shortest way he can scheme and connive his way to what he wants to accomplish, which is to pass immigration so he can say, see, look at what we did for you. Now vote for us. To keep the party in power. It isn't about what's right for America. Corporate interests are paying Congress literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Why? Because they want cheap labor. They say, well, there's all these jobs we have to fill. Well, guess what? There's 50 million Americans who are out of work. 90 million, actually, if you look at the numbers on usdebtclock.org. Are you telling me that none of those 90 million people are qualified to do the job? No. Here's the real reason that corporations and corporate America wants immigration. They want cheap labor. And if they institute a whole bunch of illegal immigrants who now become citizens and are qualified to work, and they go to them and they say, listen, you can have this job for $12 an hour, which they used to have to offer $18 an hour for, then they're going to force you to accept $12 an hour too just to compete. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the real truth behind immigration. And everything else is marketing lies. That's the truth. Corporate America is not interested in what's good for America. They're interested in what's good for their bottom line. And they're willing to betray the nation that gave them their start, enabled them to be successful, and has quite frankly put them in the catbird seat by buying their products. And now they're willing to betray you and sell you out because they no longer need you. That is beyond comprehension, but it's the truth. Think about it. That is what you will come to. That's the conclusion you will come to when you really look at this. You see, it doesn't matter what all the marketing nonsense is that they throw in front of you. That's the magician's sleight of hand. That's him keeping your eye occupied while his other hands are doing something else behind his back that you can't see. What's really going on here is corporate America, and these are the giant technology companies in Silicon Valley. These are the manufacturing companies that are in your town and in cities around the country. What little bit we have left. These are the paper pushing companies that are service industry companies. They want to hire telephone operators who they don't have to pay $14, $15, $16, $18 an hour to. And they know that an influx of 25 million brand new, freshly minted Americans will take those jobs for a whole lot less. Because it gets them out of a kitchen where they're working illegally, or it gets them out of the field where they're picking cotton or they're picking vegetables. You see, the game afoot here is simply this. Corporations are pounding Congress, and they're using their money to accomplish that task. They're loading up their re-election coffers with money. Lobbying, bribing, conniving, scheming. And Congress is turning around and telling you, listen, the real reason we're doing this is because if the Republicans don't get the Hispanic vote, we'll be locked out. That's not true. That's not true at all. The real truth is they've been paid by their masters to do something. And now they're going to force it down your throat because they've got to accomplish the task they've already been paid to do. The real truth is, I'm okay with resolving the problem of what we've got with immigration here in this country. I recognize they tell us it's 12 million. Everybody knows it's really closer to 25 or 30 million. And anybody who lives in the Southwest will guarantee that number. So here's the solution. Everybody needs to tell Congress the same thing. No immigration whatsoever until the following things have happened. And you do it in piecemeal small bits. Here's what we do. First and foremost, we shut the border so tight that a gnat can't get across. We lock that border down. And we independently verify that it's been locked down by somebody who's not benefiting by telling you lies, like the Department of Homeland Security. They're telling us that the border is securer now than it's ever been. That's a crock. It's a lie. It's nowhere close to it. Ask anybody who lives in the Southwest or anywhere near the border. They'll tell you the Border Patrol is telling us it's a lie. Border Patrol, by the way, is against this immigration policy. So here's the deal. We lock down the border legitimately, permanently, hard. Put military troops on it. All these guys coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, guess what? They're hardened combat veterans. Put them down there on the border. And the order is, you can't come across. End of argument. We've done that in separating North and South Korea along a 160-mile front, and we've been doing that for 60 years. And a mouse can't cross that border. So you can't tell me it can't be done. And then, after that has been done and the border has been sealed, you open up a 1-year immigration registration period. If you are here illegally, you have 1 year to step forward and register and come out of the shadows. And you say, here I am. My name is whatever my name is. I'm registering because I want to be accepted and I want to stay. If you're unwilling to do that, then that tells me that you really don't want to follow our rule of law. You register, and that means you go to the back of the line. That means that you also have to pay a fine. That means you have to start paying taxes. You're on probation, if you will. And if at the end of that 1-year registration period, you have not registered, and we discover you, whether we pull you over or you're involved in an altercation or we find out some way that you are still here and you have not registered, immediate exportation or deportation. Now, well, you're going to break up families. Hey, listen, you've been given a year to come forward. And the way to keep your family intact is to come forward and say, hey, listen, we're the Gutierrezes, and we're going to all register. There's 5 of us living here. And we'll let you stay. But you're going to have to pay the price. And you're going to have to go through the motions that you should have gone through to get here in the first place. Only then, and only then, can we have any discussion about what the terms of paying that price should be. You see, I'm not heartless. I don't want to see people ripped apart, and I don't want to see families torn apart. But this lawless nonsense about the president making dictatorial orders that these people can stay and these people can't and all of that nonsense, listen, that's an act of a dictator. We need to do this right, and we need to do it slowly. We don't need a comprehensive immigration package. We need to take steps and watch the result of those steps and then act in the next step. That's how you do it. If you want to climb down from a steep area that you are at to get to the bottom, what do? You move one step at a time, carefully. You don't jump. If you jump, you will get to the bottom, but you may not like the way you got there, and you may not like the condition you're in at the bottom. But if you carefully, slowly work your way down that cliff, you'll get safely to the bottom. And that's the problem. Congress never wants to do it like that. They want to thump it all together into this comprehensive package, an omnibus act. Anytime you hear the word comprehensive and omnibus, know that you are being sold out. Because they laden it up with pork and a bunch of nonsense that nobody ever reads, and then they pass it, and now we got these brand new laws, and then we allow all these extra constitutional administrative agencies to build the rules around which that law is implemented. Think Obamacare. They're going to do it to you again, but this time they're going to do it to you with immigration. And I'm telling you that that is not good for America. There is a way to resolve this problem. And then going forward, our immigration policy should be real simple. You get advancement in the line if you're bringing something to our country. But if you're coming here to simply be a tick on our resources, hey, listen, we really don't have a whole lot of need for that. We got plenty of that already. But if you're coming here and you've got a degree, or you want to invest money, or you want to sit here and run a business where you're going to hire people, now we got something to talk about. That's the true best interest of America. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to tackle our fourth and final subject for today. Freedom for security, as noted by Benjamin Franklin, is a fool's game. We've been playing it for a long time. I'm going to explain to you how it becomes a suicide pact. This is a very, very important segment of this program. Make sure you don't miss this. And if you're watching it, share this with everyone you know. We'll be right back. know, there are so many things going on, folks, that most of America isn't even aware of. And I got to tell you, it's just killing me that our media is hiding the truth from us in so many different areas. There are a few people that are out there speaking openly about it. But one thing you'll notice is that the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear that kind of talk. They don't want you to hear the kind of talk that the Cato Institute came out with and made the other day, where Michael Cannon from the Cato Institute was asked directly by Congress, what could we do? What can America do about a president who continues to operate lawlessly like a dictator? And here's what he had to say. There is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government or our revolutionary right to overthrow it. That is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. If the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, then they will conclude that neither are they. That is a very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations upon the people that the legislature did not approve. And he's right. But I'm going to take it further back. I'm going to say it was even before Abraham Lincoln, because our actual Declaration of Independence is even more candid about it. Our Declaration of Independence says, hey, listen, if you're going to sit there and act as a usurper, we have a right as a nation to literally overthrow you and remove you from power. In fact, it's more than a right. Our Declaration of Independence calls it a duty. Now, yesterday, Rand Paul, he made a speech, and he invoked the opening pages of Ray Bradbury's famous novel called Fahrenheit 451. And he brings it together with the idea that what we are now doing and what we have allowed to happen with the NSA monitoring us, with all of these laws and rules and regulations that are imposed on us by a bunch of people that aren't even accountable to us. We can't even get them out of power if we want. They're not elected. They're appointed or they're hired. And these people who are writing the Obamacare regulations and are writing these EPA regulations that are about to be shoved down your throat January 1st, you don't even know who they are. They're nameless, they're faceless. We have no control over them. I want you to hear this segment. It lasts about 5 minutes, but I got to tell you, it is probably one of the things that you will hear today that will rock your world. This should be a very, very important wake-up call to the vast majority of people in America who aren't quite recognizing yet how far down the rabbit hole we've fallen. But here's a guy who's an actual senator, and he's telling us in no uncertain terms that we have a problem on our hands that we need to resolve and that we can't continue to ignore it, that we actually have to do something about it. And we do. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where we have lost control of our government. And it's no longer a government by, of, and for the people. It's a government that Congress is using to beat the tar out of us, that our government is using to now become our masters. And he talks about how we cannot allow the flame of liberty to go out on our watch. I got to tell you, we have passed and allowed our freedom to be taken away based on a promise of keeping us safe. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, Ben Franklin told us very clearly that that was a suicide pact for us to accomplish that. To allow that to go on was a suicide pact. That's what he said. People who will give up their freedom for security will get and deserve neither. I want you to hear Rand Paul for a minute. Just ride with me for this 4 minutes and 58 seconds. It's 5 minutes. But I'm telling you right now, it's a powerful statement. I want you to hear it.
In the opening pages of Fahrenheit 451, Guy Montag asks, wasn't there a time when firemen used to put out fires? They laugh at him and they rebuke him and say, everybody knows firemen start fires. Now, Montag knew this. Montag's father and his grandfather had been firemen. It had been his duty for many years to start fires. He knew it was his duty to burn books. But this day was a little bit different. He showed up and the woman wouldn't leave. He said, the woman's on the porch. She won't leave. She has all of her books and she won't leave. So as they're dousing her books and her with kerosene, she shouts out and she goads them. She is indignant that they would touch her books at all. And she won't leave. And she says, play the man, Master Ridley. Today we will light such a candle by God's grace in England that it won't be forgotten. They keep dousing her with kerosene and she says it again. Play the man, Master Ridley. Today we will light such a candle. And the reference is lost on the firemen in the book, and they continue to do their job. The reference is to Hugh Latimer, who became a human candle. He was burned at the stake in 1555 for heresy. His heresy was to oppose the state religion. His heresy was to oppose the state. His heresy was to promote that the Bible be translated into English. Now, we're not yet burning folks at the stake, fortunately. We're not burning books, but your government is interested in what books you read. They're interested in what you say on your phone calls. They're interested in what you write in your emails. This has been going on for a while now. Last week I asked for a report on this, and I was given a classified briefing. I wanted to know, to what extent is your privacy being invaded? To what extent are they reading your emails, reading and listening to your phone conversations without a judge's warrant? And I can't tell you the answer because it's classified. It's classified how many times they're doing it. But I think what I can get away with saying is that when the government says it's a few hundred, it's closer to a gazillion. All right? And a gazillion's a fictitious number, but it's a very large number, and that is close to the number of communications that are being looked at by the federal government. We are giving up our privacy. We are trading our liberty for some sort of sense or some sort of ostensible security. We've traded our personal privacy and our personal dignity when we travel. I mentioned the other night a couple of stories about the TSA. I'll mention two quickly. There was a man transporting the ashes of his parents, of his father, in an urn. The TSA made him open it. They swirled their fingers in the human ashes. It fell to the floor and the ashes fell out and they laughed. Another young man who's deaf was with a deaf group. He comes through with candy in his luggage, and they say, you can't take the candy, you have to donate it, or you don't travel. He donates the candy, and as he walks off, they're laughing at him and saying, you effing deafy, and eating his candy. This is what we've come to. There's a Harvard Law School professor by the name of Noah Feldman. And he wrote recently, he said, the next time the TSA asks you to put your hands above your head, a little bit higher, no hun, just a little bit higher, and hold this pose for 7 vulnerable seconds. The next time they ask you this, ask yourself, is this the pose of a free man? It's slipping away from us. Hugh Latimer was a human candle, and when he said that let not this episode be forgotten, let this be an episode that will not soon be forgotten, when he became a human candle, he was a human candle against tyranny and intolerance. We still have a torch that's burning. The Liberty torch is burning, figuratively or otherwise, in New York Harbor. But I exhort you all not to let the flame of liberty go out. Thank you very much.
Wow. The next time airport security tells you to put your hands over your head and hold that vulnerable position for 7 long, vulnerable seconds. Ask yourself, is this the posture of a free man? Ladies and gentlemen, I think you know the answer to that question. Now, you got a guy here who actually sits on all of these secret committees. He's entitled to know. He's supposed to be a watchdog for us against an NSA operating outside of their constitutional limits. And he says that not only did they tell him, but he's now barred from telling you. Really? Would you accept that from the police department who said, there's been a murder in our town, and we've investigated it, but we're not going to tell you who was guilty, and we're not going to tell you what we're going to do about it. We can't. It's secret. Would you accept that? You see, the problem here is they are operating so far outside the scope of what, if we knew how far this really went, and he's telling you right here, if we knew as Americans how far this went, there would be an open civil war in this country. And he says, and I'm going to read it to you again. In the summer of 2012, I asked for, and this is now, what, a year and a half ago. So think of how much worse it's gotten. In the summer of 2012, I asked for a report on this subject and was given a classified briefing. I wanted to know to what extent your privacy was being invaded, to what extent the government was reading your emails, listening to your phone conversations without a judge's warrant. At that time, I couldn't tell you because the answer was classified. What I could say, though, is that if the government says it's a few hundred incidents, it's actually closer to a gazillion incidents. A gazillion is a fictitious number, but it's a very large number, and one that is closer to the actual number of the communications that are being looked at by the federal government on a daily, hour, and even minute-to-minute basis. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you hear the words that he's telling you? I'm going to ask you this. You know, when Barack Obama was running for office, he said the famous words that we are 3 days away from fundamentally changing America. And most people didn't quite recognize the importance of those words, because I don't think they really understood what he meant by fundamental change. Now you've got a guy sitting here who sits on all of these secret panels that's entitled to know all this information, and he's got a gag order on him, and yet he's supposed to represent you. Are we not allowed to make our own determinations and our own decisions? You see, this is a suicide pact. And here's the problem. Only one party is making the decision for all of us. You've been involved in a suicide pact that you don't even have a right to know what you've agreed to. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate betrayal, the ultimate treason, the ultimate unconstitutional action. Would you allow a person to say, listen, there's 5 of us in this group, and I want you guys to all agree to something we're going to do. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you got to agree to it. And you think, okay, what's he talking about? Maybe he's going to make me drink a beer, or, it'll be something silly, or we'll have to walk down the road with a sign that says I'm an idiot or something stupid, right? And so you all agree. And then he opens up the trunk of his car and he hands everybody a pistol and he says, now everybody's got to put this to their head and pull the trigger. You see, he was the only one who knew what that pact was really about. You didn't agree to that. And if you had known what it was going to be, you wouldn't have said no. You would have said, heck no. It's even worse. It's even worse. That scenario is bad enough. But I want you to take this one in stride. So now it's the same group of 5 people. And one of the people is pretty much the acknowledged leader of that group. He's the guy who generally, you've had a circle of friends where one guy kind of arises or one girl kind of arises as the leader of that group. And he gets you all in the car and he says, we're doing something tonight. Get in. And everybody piles in because, hey, he or she is, always been the leader and must have something exciting for us. What are we going to do? Where are we heading? What are we doing? Okay, we're getting in, but where are we going? It's a secret. Just trust me. And as you're racing down the highway, you see him starting to exceed the speed limit. And suddenly the car is going 80 and 90. And you all start looking at each other thinking, what the heck is he doing? What are you doing? Trust me. And then he turns straight into a bridge abutment. Really? Is that what you agreed to? That is what they're making you agree to. You see, they're the leader, and they're telling you, trust us. If you want to take that even a little bit more to heart, imagine a father who gets his family in the car. What father would betray his family like that? That's the logical question, right? No one would think, Dad's going to kill us all. He's our dad. We trust him implicitly. And when the car reaches 100, he turns into the bridge. You see, they're committing us to a suicide pact that we have no say in. And that's beyond treason. It's beyond unconstitutional. It's beyond unfair. It is flat out evil. This is a suicide pact that America has been signed up for. And we're not even allowed to know where we're headed. We don't know the terms. We don't know the conditions. And we've trusted the person in the driver's seat. If you knew that by getting into that car that night, you were going to hit a bridge at 100 miles an hour, would you get in? If you knew that you had agreed to take a pistol and point it at your own head, would you have agreed in advance? Of course not. Is that person who's committed you in that way Are they entitled to your trust and your loyalty anymore? If you escape, if you somehow manage to reach across the separation line of the hump in the car and jam the brakes on and save your friends, would you ever trust that driver again? That's the position we are in. That is where we are. And the truth of the matter is, the consequences are just as damaging, just as deadly, just as permanent. We have been entered into a suicide pact that we cannot escape from. Not without taking immediate, exigent, emergency action. We now see the driver is turning the wheel, and we know there's a bridge abutment there. There's nothing else in sight. And it dawns on us what the plan really is. How do we react? Well, some will react in fear. Oh my goodness! Oh no! Some will react and say, Lord, here I come. Me? I'm pushing him out of the way and I'm reaching for the brake. And if I'm fortunate enough to bring that car to a halt and save myself and the 4 other people in the back seat, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm taking that driver out of that vehicle and he is not getting behind the wheel again. I didn't sign up for a suicide pact. Kept from me until the last 11th hour, 59th minute, and 59th second of my life. And I'm telling you, you have an obligation to reach for the brake with me. If I'm not successful, maybe you will be. But everybody better reach for the brake. The picture's clear. You can look through the windshield. You can see the bridge abutment. There is nothing else in sight. And that car is veering straight at it. And that driver, he's belted himself in, boy, but nobody else is wearing a seatbelt. He's prepared to survive the crash. He's the only one with an airbag, the only one with a seatbelt. That's your Congress. That's your president. That's your administrative agencies. That's your government. And he's planning to survive it. You, not so much. Is that what you signed up for, America? Is that what you agreed to in advance? Is that what you agreed to at all? Do yourself and me a favor. Apply the brakes by sharing this video. Sharing this audio clip. I don't care if you sit down with 5 people around the table and say, hey, we're the 5 in the car, and I want you to just hear this message. Spend a half hour, 20 minutes with me, and at the end of this, we'll have a discussion about it. Take action. Don't throw your hands up and say, oh my goodness, send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org if you have some input on this. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/americasvoicenow. And all of our programs are up on our website at americasvoicenow.org or on youtube.com/americasvoicenow. See you tomorrow morning. God bless.